Welcome back to another episode of Realty Resilience. My name is Dave Nations. I'm the host of Realty Resilience and founder of Nations Network Real Estate Advisors, and super excited about this interview today. We've got Mitzi Jasnicki, who is somebody that I met years ago and helped us build our team to where it is today, and really excited about this interview and to really reconnect, I feel like, as well at the same time. And she's been in the business for a bit. Mitzi, how's it going?
It's going great. I actually retired for the second time again back in end of October last year. So
Okay.
this has
So
been sort of fun for me.
are you officially now you're retired, or are we going to go back into anything for a bit or?
Well, probably something similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
So,
I, I maintain an active license. I have, I've been a broker for 40 years. Yeah. Mhm. So
okay. So yeah, if you don't mind, share with everybody some background, like you just said. So you've been a broker for 40 years, you know, give us some history on how you got to where you are now that you've retired for the second time.
mhm, for the second time. So I got into the real estate business. I never had any big desire. My husband thought I would do, that it would be a good direction for me. And that's where I kicked it off and fell in love with the land and commercial business. Did that for about 7 years. And then I became a broker and took over an office and met someone that I coached with, and he taught me how to coach my own agents. And that's how I started coaching, was just my own agents and my own brokerage. And ended up going to work as a coach for that company. And that was in 2000, year 2000. So I started coaching in 2000 and coached up until this past October.
It's funny to me when I hear 2000, I think, oh, just a few years ago. But, it's really, that was 24 years
24.
ago, like, oh my
Right.
God. I think when somebody says 30 years ago, I'm thinking like 1970s, but no, that was 2000, 1995. So,
That's right. It goes by really fast. If I could give anybody any advice about anything in life, it would be it goes by really fast.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It does, So in
Mhm.
fact, let's see. I had my own little independent company, and then
Mhm.
rolled over to Keller Williams in 2011, and in May of 2011. And I met you in August of 2011.
Mhm.
And I believe we started coaching shortly after that. And
We
we
did.
coached with our team for 10 years.
Yeah.
Is that
Up until
right?
when I retired. Yeah, when I retired the first time, which was the end of 2022, I think. Yes. Yeah. We were together for a long time.
So when you and I started together, it was me, and then we brought on one person short for a little while, and then brought on, I believe, then Catherine joined us, and it was
Mhm.
me, you, and Jody, and Catherine, I think, for a little bit there, if I remember correctly, right? So
Right.
just trying to give our audience kind of a little background of like when we started, it was really, pretty much just me, and then worked on that first hire. And one of the things that I share with people all the time that I've never forgotten, and I probably still have the original one saved actually might be on this computer, was my organizational chart. And I remember when you were like, okay, you need to build this out and figure out what it is you want to do. And that original org chart actually had my team, and the
Mhm.
team, had like, I don't know, 10 people maybe, owning some market centers, property management, and then my renovations business. And what's
Mhm.
interesting today is I've got the team, and it's much larger than I had figured. We have
Right.
the renovations business, and we actually ended up bringing on guys full time on payroll. And we've got four of them, and that was what was on that org chart, was four guys. And
Right.
then property management was something I was doing at the time, got away from, but we are managing all of our own rental portfolio now and have somebody that works for us full
Nice.
time and does all that. So in a roundabout way, a lot of these things ended up coming to fruition. And, here we are. What is that, like 13 years later? So I
Right.
thought it would be really cool to have you on and share all the things that you help others and have helped me over the years build this team, and what is it that people should know? What are the things that you see out
Mm.
there that people are doing that's worked really well? Maybe some mistakes along the way. There's a lot there, but in your opinion, as a coach, what do you see that people need to be thinking about to really help build successful businesses in this business, in real estate?
I think I think the desire to grow fast, I understand, right? We want to grow fast, grow our business fast. And so many times that causes people to take shortcuts, right? The first shortcut that, you and I realized you were doing was, your first hire, Jody, was your assistant and your buyer's agent, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's
Correct.
right.
And it, and it wasn't working. And as I share with, anybody, it's almost never going to work for that, because those are two different minds. There's two different personality styles that would have those two jobs, so the reality is that, yeah, your administrative work will almost always suffer, and unfortunately so will the buyer side almost always suffer when you're trying to split things up. So
Yeah.
as hard as it is, um, to grow slow, remember what I said a little while ago, time really does go by fast. So, like, go ahead and, pull back and and put in the time to do what you need to grow the team members that you need, and be really serious about your hires, right? Like, really
By
take
that,
time.
that's an interesting point on the serious front. Like, well, obviously, if I'm hiring somebody, I'm serious. So what does that mean to you?
Well, only because I've been in the industry for so long. I know that agents often want to trade want to trade in doing it the right way because they think they can get quick success. Well, if I just get these four buyers agents in here and I make them do this, then I'll be able to, turn deals faster and hit our goals quicker, and then I'll have the money to do it right. Do it
Mm.
right, right?
Do you
Gary Keller,
see? Oh,
right?
go
Gary
ahead.
Keller wrote a book. If you're with KW, you know this, and if you're not with KW, go ahead and buy the book anyway if you've never read it. Millionaire Real Estate Agent. I mean, it gives you a foundation for building out a team. That's what it was about, right?
Yeah.
Building out a team.
Have you seen this? I'm just curious, maybe not, out of other industries where people are like, well, I'm just bringing in people and I'll just get them and then we'll get to where we need to go and then I'll bring in the right people. Or is it just us realtors that are like, whatever, we'll just bring in people and we'll deal with it later?
So I don't have a lot of experience with businesses outside of real estate. I would say I home inspectors used to be able to do that, but not anymore. They're highly regulated, at least in the
Yeah.
state. In my state, they are. Um, and I think the mortgage industry probably
Because I
hires
think
quickly.
where I'm going with, oh, that's a good point. And where I'm going with that
Mhm.
is I think a lot of big organizations have a process, right? And they take people through it and you have multiple interviews and all of the things. And that's what they do to then hire somebody. So why is this any different? Right? Why do we treat it differently? Why do we think it's going to work any better for us to be able to just say, yeah, just bring some people in, we'll figure it out and it'll work. And then when it doesn't, we're mad about it, you know?
Exactly. Exactly. It's because of the entrepreneurial spirit of the industry, I think, is why, right? So people, all the way back to my brokerage days, when I would interview brand new people coming into the business, I was always, uh, you know, it was a red flag to me when someone came in and told me about their idea, how they're going to do it differently. And I would listen to it to see, is there anything here or not? But typically, that's sort of the, kiss of failure, if you will, to not say, hey, wait a minute, what's here? What can I look at that's really worked? And what hasn't? So I think I'm going to go with a proven track record, which is, you know, again, I'm going to go back to, MREA, Millionaire Real Estate Agent. There's that book was written based on, a group of agents' proven track record,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that was a big thing, big aha for me. Again, I had a buddy of mine and I had our own independent brokerage. And then when we
Hmm.
rolled over, really it was about systems and models, right? And really just following the model. And what I realized was we were essentially reinventing the wheel, and trying to do it our way. And it was challenging. And then realizing there were people doing a lot more business, having a lot more success. Businesses were
Hmm.
a lot bigger. Not that that
Right.
was what I wanted, but obviously it was proven, right? So it was like, okay,
Hmm.
well, tell me what you're doing, and then I can most likely take that and do it myself, right? I
Hmm.
remember going to the mega camp to the conference and sitting there going, okay, well, these guys are doing that. I could do that. But it became a game of like just figure out what's working and then plug it in,
Right.
and
Right.
being less creative actually was a benefit. So I agree with what you're saying. It's really following that model. So again, for that first hire, it's taking time, it's hiring the right person, it's taking the time to find the right person. And that
Hmm.
first hire, would you still agree today that it's hiring an admin, not a buyer's agent if I'm out there as a solo agent?
100%. And the second as well. The
Okay.
second hire as well.
So your first two hires would still both be administrative.
Correct. The
Okay.
second one could be part-time, right? The second one could be a part-time person, or it
Yeah.
could be a someone remote that could work.
Yeah, like a VA or
Hmm.
even just somebody that doesn't have to be in your office every day.
Correct.
Okay. So then at what point am I looking at, okay, well then when do I get to bring on the buyer's agent? Are you seeing trends at all with people that you've coached over the years, as far as looking at it from a sales volume, units closed? Again, you referenced the MREA. I know in there it used to kind of have sort of certain levels at where you would want to move. But given
Hmm.
with technology these days, I feel like you could probably go a little further as a solo agent or an agent with an admin before I really needed to add in another person, just because there's so many tools out there that do more for us than we were doing even when you and I started together in 2011.
No question about that, about the tools that, and what it takes. Of course, today everybody's had to sort of rewire the buyer agent side of things just from what we've had thrown at us from a legal standpoint, right? Um, but I think it comes down to when can you afford it? When can you afford that? And if you have enough revenue coming in, the sooner you can focus in on listings and let someone else take care of the buyers for you. As long as they're going to do it at the level this is where you have to hire the right person. You want them to be your representative,
So
right?
what's the right amount of revenue? Right. So if you're coaching me and I'm like, great, I feel like we're good here. I'm gonna go bring somebody in. How do I determine that?
I would say, okay, great. What does it cost to run your business per month? And what does it cost to run your life? And how is that
Mm.
being funded?
So not only should I know my numbers for my business, but I also need to know my numbers for personal. So you're talking about my mortgage, my expenses for utilities, eat, all of that on top of just the business, right? So I need to
Day,
know both of those.
daycare, tuition, family, whatever your life looks like, right? And
Okay.
so
So
if you have other, so let's just say your partner has or spouse has money, revenue coming in, and you can actually say, hey, we can do this can build the business and not worry so much about bringing revenue in and focus on building the business because everything's covered. I mean, because of how
Yes.
right? Because how real estate agents get paid. I mean, it's always going to be, oh my gosh, can I afford this? And there's nothing worse than, a desperate agent who needs a deal to close. Nothing, I mean, because we should only be about customer service, right? It should be
Yeah.
the best thing for the client. And there's nothing worse than an agent who needs something to close because they've already, you know, it, their payments are going out to their bills.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because then it gets hard to know, is this really a good deal or is this, you need the deal?
Right,
For
right.
sure. And I think that's also, would you agree then that's what keeps them from hiring as well? Meaning that like you said, people are concerned about like, well, are they going to have enough? Right. So they're going to keep closing. Like maybe I know what I need to have. Maybe I have the amount already saved or, cause I know how
Mhm.
much I need personally. I know how much I need professionally, but what happens if the market shifts? What happens if 2008 happens again, and it hits the fan? So I'm not going to hire cause so how do you work through that process? Because I think that's another big thing that holds people back from growing. And they're like, well, I'm just going to do it myself and I'm okay with it. And I'll just work and I'll do all of the things. And they're making good money because they're afraid of investing, what I would say, investing in themselves
Right.
by making that good hire and really
Mhm.
being able to see their business go up and probably get some freedom back and get a little bit
Mhm.
better work-life balance. But that feeling of man, what if it all blows up is holding them back. So how do you work through that?
Uh, I I think, it's a risk because you're a business owner, right? And that's probably the other thing that most people coming into the business new don't quite get yet. They say, "Oh, I got my real estate license and I'm going to work for this company or this indie or this is who I work for." No, 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 no. You work for yourself. You're aligned with a brokerage. That should be a really strong strategic alliance for you. But the truth is you own your business. The truth is that the IRS sees you as a business. They don't see you as Dave Nations. They see you as a business because that's how you're reporting, right?
Yeah. That's so true. And that's something Jeremy, our director of ops, talks about all the time is that you chose to go into business for yourself and your first hire was and how are you showing up every day? Are you going into work every day? Are you, in our case, doing lead gen every day? Are you doing, you're tracking your numbers? Do you have a P&L? Do you know all of these things like any other business, right? And then when the day is over, have you closed out the store and, wrapped up your day? Do you know what you have to do for tomorrow? And, all of that kind of stuff. And really, that is a big goal of ours with this podcast is really wanting people to treat this business like a business because that's really you're 100% true and
Mm-hmm.
accurate that that's what it is. And I think being in it for a while and you've been in it a little bit longer than me is how many people do you see that just sort of flying by the seat of their pants and they're just sort of figuring it out and every day is like, well, I gotta go find a deal today, and this month's great but I don't know about next month. And so again, how do we help them create predictability, sustainability, right, so they don't get burnt out in this business? What would be
That's
that next thing that they need in order to then create that for them, you think?
so I think that if they're really committed, they're going to have a few things. Obviously, they've made a good choice for themselves in the brokerage that they've aligned with. They should have some sort of business plan, even if it's written on the back of an envelope. I don't care. It just needs to be this is what you here's what I want to achieve. Here's what I need to achieve. And then keep understanding like you have to control your time. It's all you have. It's all you have to to make your living with, right? And so many agents fall into that. Well, I don't really have a schedule, so they should have a schedule and actually show up. The sad truth is that more than 90% of the real estate agents who are active today are closing about cumulatively, they're closing less than 10% of all the transactions.
Wait, say that stat again.
Mhm. So less than 10% of the agents are, excuse me, 90% of the agents are closing less than 10% of all transactions.
Wow.
So less than 10% of the agents are closing more than 90% of all the transactions.
Whew.
And when I got into the business, I thought, I'm going to make a change. I want people to do more production. And I ran my business on per person production in my operation. The sad truth is when I started, the numbers were 80-20, and now they're 90-10. Actually, they're more like 93-7.
Wow, I've not heard that stat, but that's pretty insane,
Mhm.
actually. So, is
Right?
that directly tied to the fact that people aren't doing the day-to-day activities consistently, so they're just
Yes.
doing whatever shows up then, right? So, when my phone rings, then I'll do a deal, but
Mhm.
otherwise, I'll hang out until one calls me, kind of thing. Is that basically what's happening?
Unfortunately, it is. And they want to do deals, and they always say, I'm really good at this. And uh, what they forget is that the most important part of their schedule is generating business, not transacting it. I'm really great at a listing presentation. I'm awesome with a buyer and a car. It's where do I find them?
Yeah.
That's your number one job is finding them.
So I need to go out and find business. What should I be doing to do that? How do I figure out what I'm good at, right? So if I'm new in this or
Mhm.
struggling like you're talking about and trying to grow this business and really make it into something, I mean, I know for us, ours is SOI database, past clients, repeat referral is huge. And that's about 88% of our business, and it's stayed in that 80 to 90% range forever. But other
Which
people,
is
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and that I mean that's fantastic because you'll end up having more consistent repeat referral business. You can do things like buy leads and do a lot of phone prospecting, internet prospecting, uh, very expensive marketing, internet marketing, billboards, whatever it is, right? I mean, you can throw money at this business, and if you're going to do that, then you really have to work it to make certain that you're getting a return on that investment. So if you're brand new, start with everyone you know and then expand from there. What do you love? Like, do you belong to any clubs or organizations? Where can you be around more people that you can build relationships with? And then when they can trust you in whatever that is, you have a better shot that they're going to trust you in this. Because real estate's it's a it is a technical transaction, but it is emotional purchase. It is emotional. It's a very emotional deal,
Yeah.
especially if it's for their home. If it's an investment, it's a different. That is different, but it's still emotional because we're investing our money,
Yeah.
right?
For sure. But there are personalities, right, that I think work really well in that SOI database, your friends, family space versus like you were saying, the prospecting, maybe calling FISBOs for sale by owners, expireds, working internet leads. Again, I'm on the newer side of this, let's say. Where do I figure out
Hmm.
what's best for me? Because again, from our seat and bringing in new people onto our team, um,
Hmm.
everybody freezes up once it's time to like have the conversation, and actually talk to people. Or I can talk to people, but then I didn't mention anything about real estate. So I had a really good conversation. Well, but you did, except for that it didn't generate any business or any potential business or a referral or anything, right? It's getting
Hmm.
out of that uncomfortable space or being uncomfortable, right? And being okay with that. So what do I need to do, I guess, to get comfortable being uncomfortable, and having those conversations or, I'm just, again, what I'm asking is I'm trying to figure out how do I know where I need to go? Because I think that's one of the many things in this business. There's so many ways to get business, right? Open houses, internet
Mhm,
leads, social
mhm,
media, all of the things. So then and I'm speaking from my own experience. I think I try to do a little of everything,
mhm.
and see what worked. But I'd also, with you, I don't want to necessarily spend the money if I'm brand new.
Right. If you're brand new and you don't have, you know, if you're not walking in with a chunk of money to invest in your business, then I would stick with people that you know and branching out from there and learning how to communicate with them. So people don't like the word scripts. Um, eh, but if you can get some languaging that you can practice, I mean, the truth is that you can sound really convincing and feel really comfortable when you've said something 1,000 times.
So would you say role playing is pretty important in this
Oh,
business?
critical. I would say do it in the mirror by yourself if you have no one else, and spend, you know, 30 minutes a day while you're new. Read the questions, always be question based because that causes people to respond to you, right? Don't tell people, ask people questions.
I think that's a tough one to learn too. That's a great
Hmm.
tip right there is ask questions. How do you continue to ask questions so many times? And I'm still at fault for it, I think, is that you want to just immediately jump in and solve the problem. You want to jump in, give them the answer, and I didn't ask enough. And so then I'm
Hmm.
telling him something and then it doesn't work out. And I'm wondering why. And it's like, well, I gave him advice on something he didn't actually need advice on. Right. Or I thought this is
Right.
what I needed to tell him, but that's because I
Hmm.
didn't ask enough information. Going on a listing appointment and you hear something and you just jump in and start talking. Really, how do you continue to ask more questions to where you shouldn't even have to say anything? They're answering it all. And then, like,
Right.
okay, sounds good. And they walk themselves into whatever the answer already is, I guess. Right. But I think the asking questions is so hard because me, I'm very quick to want to just be like, all right, let's just get the show on the road. Yeah, here's what you need to know. You're going to be good. Let's go. And then it doesn't
Right.
work. Right.
And isn't it funny? Like people will say they don't like pushy salespeople, right? And that's usually because someone's just telling them, "Here's what you need. Here's what," and, and they're not being heard. And you
That's
can
good.
believe that you can believe that they're listening to you, but they might be in the Bahamas in their head for all you know if you're just talking, right? When you ask people questions, their brains, the way our brains are wired, we automatically go to find the answer to the question. We're going to answer the question, right? And so if you practice it, my first coach, here was the assignment that he gave all the time: play the question game. So ask, like, don't worry about your prospects at the moment. Every single place you go, ask people questions and see how far you can get in that question
So like
process.
if I'm in the grocery store and I'm checking you out at the grocery store, like checking your groceries out, not checking you out.
Right.
And
I get
just
it.
just clarifying. Uh so that what are you ask are you just asking me one question or do you mean you're trying to ask me multiple questions?
I'm going to ask you multiple questions and I'm going to follow up on the answer that you gave me.
Okay.
So if I say, if I ask somebody, oh, how long have you been here? Or how long have you worked here? Oh, I've been here 3 years. Oh, 3 years. Good for you. Well, so what did you do before this? Oh, well, I was still a student before this. Oh, good. Yeah, where did you go to school? What did you study? But whatever their answers are, I'm going to listen to that answer. I'm going to use part of their answer and then dig into another question.
So how do I end it? Or do I just keep asking questions or
S- So if it's the situation that you said, then you're going to check me out at the grocery store, and I'm going to. So hey, it's been great talking to you. See
yeah,
you. Bye.
yeah.
Right. The point of the assignment of play the question game is just to see how far you can get in a situation that doesn't have anything has no pressure to it. Like
So,
practice when there's no pressure. It's not a customer. You're not talking to a customer. You're not telling them what you do. If you're
so now I've just developed this skill to be able to ask questions. So then when I'm on the appointment in the actual moment, I'm just used to asking questions and it doesn't
correct.
feel like I'm forcing it. And I'm just asking questions like I would with anybody else at that point. It just so happens I'm trying to
Mhm.
close you for business, right? So
Yes. Another
it's good.
assignment that first coach gave me was to take my listing presentation and handwrite it out. Of course, today it would be, on my iPad or computer or something, but
Chat
hand,
GPT.
uh so write out your entire, all the questions that you would ask in your listing presentation, write them out as questions on a legal pad. And I would sit down, I'd say, as I was preparing for our presentation today, Dave, I wanted to sit down and really think into, what you were going to need. So I've got about 25 questions that I wrote down that I think are going to be really impactful for me in helping you. Do you mind if I go through those?
Okay. So I say
And
yes. And then are you going through all 25 of these?
probably. I may jump around depending on the conversation. I may say, oh, I don't even need to ask this one over here because we already answered that. But it allows me to be way more conversational and asking questions versus them feeling like they're being interrogated. Nobody wants to
Uh,
be interrogated, right?
right.
So it has to be. That's why it's so important that whatever response they give you, you acknowledge it. Oh, so you've lived here since 78. Wow. You've been in this house a long time, right? So it gives me that. I've anchored that down. They've been heard,
And
right?
and it forces me to have to listen, like not zone out in the middle of it and go, what did they say?
It,
What are we talking about? Yeah, yeah.
uh,
That's
because
great.
as salespeople, I mean, it's easy to do that. The other thing is, just like over prepare. I, I, I became a football fan back in 2009. I'd never really been a football fan, but anyway, I found myself into it. And one of the things that today drives me crazy is, um, I was taught in this business that all of my practice needed to be at the highest level. I needed to practice the same way as when I would actually present. And so I'm forever saying those guys didn't practice enough. If they had practiced more, he would have caught that pass. He would have dropped that pass. Like they didn't practice that. And and that happens to agents. They feel silly practicing. But the truth is like that's what's going to give you an edge in this business. Is really knowing how to be able to put yourself in a process where the client feels heard, understood, that you care about them, that you're not just trying to take their listing or have them purchase something. They're going to know that you're their advocate. That's a huge difference. I mean, the truth is today, still, we get paid a lot of money for what we do.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
one of, right? And,
Yeah.
and
And it's interesting, staying on the football topic. I'm not a huge football fan. I like watching it on the weekends and stuff, but you talk about people not practicing, but if you watch like some of the couple early games of this season, right? And
mhm,
there's the players that didn't play in preseason because they didn't want to get hurt or they were holdout for contract purposes or whatever. Those first couple games are rough, in a lot of cases. And it's like, well, nobody has really played together yet. Maybe they're
right,
practicing. I don't know how all that works. Like I said, I'm not a huge diehard fan here. But my
mhm,
point is like they're not playing in those preseason games, which is essentially practice for the season. And it shows up in those first couple of games where it just looks rusty and everyone's sort of like trying to figure it out and the teams are kind of ironing out things. And I think it's like agents and what you're saying is that then instead of actually going to role play and learning this, I'm actually just showing up for my game, which is my buyer consult or my listing presentation. And I'm like, I got this. I know what I'm going to say. And then I just say things, and then part of it's good, right? But then I walk out, I
Mhm.
don't have that signed agreement, and I'm like, oh, it went really well. And then okay, cool. So you got a signed listing. Well, no, they're going to think about it and they're going to get back to me, and I would say at least 50% of the time, right, you're probably not getting it, and it's like, well, I just left it open-ended. If it
Mhm.
went so well, why didn't they agree to sign with you?
Right.
And then I'm like, oh man, I didn't think about that. Oh, I should have said this. Oh, why didn't I ask him this? Oh, and
Mhm.
those are the things that had you prepared, you would have already done, right? So then when you walk out of there and you say, oh, it was a great meeting. Great. You got the listing? Yep. And you've already covered it because I 100% agree. I've walked out of appointments so many times. I'm like, oh, we're good. Yeah, they're going to
Mhm.
sign. And then you follow up and they're like, oh, we went with somebody else. And you're like, oh, what did I, now you start going, what did I forget? What didn't I do? Well, first of all, I didn't get a signed agreement before I left the meeting, you know? So I left that out there and I didn't
Mhm.
clarify why I didn't get the signed agreement. I
Right.
don't know. Was it because of my compensation structure? Was it because of what I said for price? Was it me? Was it something, my marketing play? I don't know. I didn't ask. They just wanted to think about it.
Right.
And I said, okay, instead of why are we, and digging on that and
Mhm.
feeling comfortable. Like you said, when you've practiced it 1,000 times, me then asking the question is no longer awkward because I'm so used to
Right.
practicing. And I think that's where we get held up is, well, I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything. But if I would have practiced these objection handlers, now saying it, it's like, oh yeah,
It just
so what are we waiting for?
right. Kind of rolls off your tongue. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
and
like,
it's funny when it does do that, and then they're like, oh yeah, you know what? That's a great question. You know what? You're right. Let's do this. And then it works. You're going, oh man,
oh,
that does actually work.
oh, they said yes. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah. So, and, you know, another, another piece I think that's really critical, is know your market. Like,
Okay.
know your market, know what's going on in your market. Like, preview every home that comes on the market. I don't care
So
if you don't have anybody for it, preview it.
what do you so I'm in St. Louis. I mean, we've got a lot of different municipalities. When you say preview the market,
Mhm.
do I need to know every little nook and cranny? I need to know overall what's going on in, St. Louis metro area. Like, give me a little bit on what you mean by that. Like specifically in the neighborhood I'm going on that appointment for. How big or small are you going here?
So I can share with you that in the Atlanta market, there are agents who cover the whole territory, which is crazy because it's 60 miles across and 60 miles north and south. So it's big market.
Yeah.
Um, but the reality is you probably have a an area that you work most, know that one inside out, and then know overall, like, what's the inventory level look like? How many days is average days on the market? And these are numbers that your MLS probably or your board probably supplies to you. Get to
Okay.
them as quickly as you can. If it's only once a month, I mean, then with ours, we're pretty fortunate. Atlanta get, I mean, I get an update every day, so it's you can stay on top of the market and know what's happening. That's critical because when you do that on a daily basis and on a really consistent basis, you see trends that other people won't see for a month or two. So you can be
I,
ahead of an upturn or a downturn.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that especially if you're not doing multiple transactions every single month, you really don't notice that, right? Like if I'm doing a deal here and there, I'm
Mhm.
still thinking the market's like it was in March. If I'm doing 5, 10, 15 deals a month, 20 deals a month, whatever it is, I've got enough consistency that I'm feeling it when it starts to tighten. I'm feeling it when it's going crazy. It's
Mhm.
always fascinated me over the last couple of years when we've had these crazy bidding wars,
Right,
and then you inevitably have a house and there's some traffic, but you don't have multiple offers and somebody just sends you an offer and it's over list. It's a great offer, honestly. But had they just picked up the phone and called and asked, they probably wouldn't have done that, right? But
right,
they're still living in that moment of like, I got to get it in, I got to go quick, I got to give them something really good, and then they do, and it's great for your client and your seller. But on the flip side, you're going, man, silly, you know,
I
and
didn't need to do that.
yeah. And again, I think
Mhm.
that's knowing the market. It's understanding what's happening at that moment. And it's, you know, communicating with the other agents, but tracking the numbers. And I think that's great, a great tip. In fact, our team,
Mhm.
every week will track 4 counties, all the active listings that go
Great,
on the market,
great,
what went pending the last 7 days, what closed the last 7 days, and then average days on market. And we're able to tell you that like in the last 18 months, inventory is up 68%. And the days on market is continuing to climb very slowly, but we're sitting at about 31, whereas, even a few months ago it was about 21, so tracking that though helps, and it helps give you data to be able to have a more intelligent conversation with your client. And I think it also then helps from pricing, all of that. So I think that's a phenomenal tip as far as knowing the market, understanding it, not
mhm,
just what comps are around that particular house and what you should price it at, but then
right.
overall, where are we at, right? Is the market moving fast? Is it moving slow? Are we expecting bidding wars? Are we not? And that way you set the proper expectation for your client too, right?
Exactly. And bottom line, it gives you confidence.
That's huge.
When you know your market and someone's gonna wants to argue that point with you, and you can look at them and say, "God, listen, if I could get you that for your home, trust me, I would take it at that price. I mean,
Yeah.
I would be your hero. Like, your neighbors would love me, like, everybody would love me if I did. I would love myself. I get paid on commissions, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have every reason to sell your house for the highest amount possible. I just need to make sure like, here's what the stats look like. Like, I know in Atlanta, we can track and see, um, what the average days of the market is if it's never had a price reduction, and then what the average days on the market is, and the average list price to sales price ratio if it hasn't had a price reduction or if it has. And when you can show people, oh my goodness, let's look at these stats, right? Because if we overprice your property, it's not going to be on the market this long, it's going to be on the market this long. And here's what your list price ratio could be. Over here, you're going to get 98%. Over here, oh, wow, look at it's fallen to 84%,
So true. It's great
right?
stuff. And that's, yeah, knowing your market, knowing your numbers, all the way across the board, whether it's your P&L, whether it's the market and actual data that's happening. And that's what makes you the business owner, right? I think being a business
Mhm.
owner is knowing your numbers. And I think that
Right.
that's great advice. Before we wrap up, I'm curious, what's the craziest thing you've ever been a part of or heard, like story wise, showing a house deal? Everyone always has like crazy funny stories, crazy stories, like some, I don't know, like, you do this business long enough and there's always like, I feel like we could do a podcast just on upping each
Right.
other on ridiculous things that have happened in a deal with another agent, with a client, with the showing, anything come to mind out of curiosity?
Just what just came to mind was just a funny situation. Um, so there was a house on Weekly Caravan, that the agents were going to have it on tour, and one of my agents went and showed this property, and she came in and afterwards and she said, "Oh my gosh, you know what? This house that we were in," and she tells me the address. She said, there was a sign on the door that said, "Don't let the cat out." And then I looked and he was on the porch. So I like wrestled him down and he got in the bushes. I had to go grab him and I got him and I put him back in the house. And about 4 hours later, I get a call from the property owners because it was our listing. Another one of my agents had it. That that was not their cat. Their cat was their cat was hiding under the bed from the other cat that got brought in. So, just crazy stuff happens. I mean, there've
Did
been
did the two
tons of
cats end up
things.
getting into a cat fight?
Yeah, I don't that part I don't recall, but
That's funny.
things, yeah, I mean, life is, life goes along with everything we do. We go in and out of people's properties, And even when we're selling commercial real estate, we're going in and out of their businesses or their buildings, or and you just have to keep that in perspective, right? I mean, there's a lot of crazy. I remember showing a piece of property that involved a, an office building and a house on the lake. And in the house, it said, please remove your shoes. So I can tell you that I was wearing red high heels that day. And I'm showing the property. We had all, in our stocking feet. And somebody said, hey, look, what does their golden retriever have down by the dock? It's red. And it was my shoe. So,
That's funny.
that kind of stuff just happened.
Did you
That was a
hobble
long
out of
time
there
ago.
then, I guess, after that
I
with just
hobbled
one
out of there.
shoe?
Well, because I sold land, of course I had my boots in the back, so
There
cowboy
you go.
boots with my suit. Yes.
And you do this business long enough, I feel like you always end up with extra stuff, right? You got the rain boots, you got the raincoat, the umbrella, winter coat, shorts. Like you never know what you're going to run into, so you just
You,
end up with everything in your car.
you got to be prepared. You've got to be prepared. And the
Yeah.
last thing that I would say to anyone who's just coming into the business is do not be a lone ranger, meaning you need somebody, hopefully not just another agent friend, because typically you'll, buy into each other's excuses. But whether it's your broker, whether it's your team leader at Keller Williams, whether it's a, productivity coach, it doesn't matter. Have someone who's who you are committed to telling them your activities and sharing with them what you're doing, because it's really easy in this business in particular. If you don't have a really like a high driving personality, you could go hide and kid yourself about that. You could be in denial over hiding. You might be doing
Accountability.
research, right? Thank you for that good word. Accountability. It's necessary.
Yeah. And again, I think nobody gets into this business because they want accountability, right? We get into it because I get to make my own schedule. I get the freedom. I can do whatever I want. But that's actually
Mhm.
what ends up getting us out of the business. And I think it's that accountability that you're talking about is what actually will
Mhm.
keep you in and it'll help you grow. And you're right on. Like if I'm a
Yeah.
new agent or even it doesn't matter. I'm in this business and I find somebody that I'm going to partner with that's in the same boat as me. Chances are we're probably going to kind of equally do the same thing. I need someone that I know is going to push me,
Mhm.
maybe find someone something that I did early on was find somebody else that was doing more business than me,
Mhm.
and became friends with them, spent time with them, learned what they were doing, how they were doing it, all of that
Mhm.
stuff. Right. And it was like, okay, all right, that makes sense. And then I could understand it and take it and plug it in and and then it was a game of how can I catch them? And they were
Right.
doing,
Right.
man, 10 times the amount of business as me. And it was like, great, I'm going to get after it. And eventually one day I'm going to do more than that person, but I think
Yep.
that's what what I'm hearing you say, that's to me what that means, and finding somebody that I can work with that's going to push me and help me get my business to that next level. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
well, perfect. This was been a lot of fun, Mitzi. I really
It has
appreciate you
been.
doing this.
You
And
got
I
it.
think you've had a
My privilege.
ton of
My
great nuggets
privilege.
here. So I hope the people who are listening or watching
Yep.
got a lot out of this. And
Me too.
awesome. Well,
Yeah, me too.
thanks again. And we'll talk
All
soon.
right. Hey, continued success.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Realty Resilience. Be sure to join our free Realty Resilience Facebook group where real estate professionals connect, share strategies, and access resources. You can also follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more insights. And remember, we release new episodes every 2 weeks. See you next time.